Shocking, the poor maid who risked it all to save the billionaire's son at midnight. It was a night like no other, filled with whispers and shadows that danced under the faint glow of the mansion's dying lights. Emily, a humble maid, knew this night was different. She could feel it in her bones, the electric tension that hung in the air, thick and suffocating as if the very walls were holding their breath. Moments ago, she had overheard their names. The billionaire's son, Jason, was missing, and she was the only one who knew the truth behind his mysterious disappearance. Her heart raced. Could she really be the one chosen to save him? As the clock struck midnight, a chilling wind swept through the opulent halls, rattling the crystal chandeliers overhead. The mansion, usually buzzing with laughter and chatter, now lay eerily quiet, the laughter exchanged by the wealthy now just an echo in her mind. Emily hurried through the dimly lit corridors, her hands trembling with fear, desperation clawing at her throat. She remembered the unsigned letter she'd found in Jason's abandoned room, laced with cryptic scribbles and shadowy threats. They'd mentioned something sinister, talk of debts, old grudges, and eerie figures lurking in the night. With each step, the house creaked, almost as if it were warning her to turn back. But she couldn't. She wouldn't. Jason had always treated her with kindness. He smiled when everyone else had looked down their noses at her. The thought of him in danger turned her insides to ice. Stopping in front of the grand staircase, her breath hitched. She peered into the inky depths below. What if something terrible awaited? She clutched her chest, feeling the weight of the decision she had to make: step into the unknown or run away. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With newfound resolve surging through her veins, she bolted down the stairs. The rusty latch of the basement door groaned in protest as she yanked it open, revealing a dark abyss. The smell was musty and heavy, almost suffocating, but she took a deep breath and pressed forward. Footsteps echoed behind her, shattering the silence. Panic encased her like an iron grip. Were they chasing her? The hairs on the back of her neck prickled as she felt a presence close in. What had she stumbled upon, and could she truly find Jason before it was too late? Was someone else already in the basement, watching her every move? Fear propelled her deeper into darkness as the world above faded into a haunting memory. The air grew colder and more oppressive as Emily ventured into the basement. A faint, flickering light cast shadows that twisted and lurked like a nightmare come to life. Her heart pounded like a war drum in her chest, drowning out every other sound. She pressed on, determined yet terrified, her mind racing with frantic thoughts. What if she really was too late? What if she found something horrible down here? The uneven stone floor felt damp beneath her feet, and she could almost hear the faint whisper of water dripping in the distance. Each step felt like a declaration of defiance against the fear trying to pull her back into the comforting safety of the mansion above. Then, as she moved deeper into the dark, she spotted a door slightly ajar at the end of the narrow hallway. With a trembling hand, she pushed it wider. The hinges creaked ominously, leaving a chill in the air as if something died within those walls. The room beyond was cluttered with dust-covered furniture, the remnants of a forgotten past. Old trunks lay scattered about, their contents hidden beneath layers of neglect. A low groan echoed from somewhere in the depths, and Emily froze. "Jason?" she whispered, her voice barely breaking the silence. There was no response, only the erratic beating of her heart. She stepped inside, her eyes straining to catch any movement in the dim light. Then she saw a figure huddled in the corner, tied and bound, the silvery sheen of hair emerging from the darkness. "Emily! Help!" came a choked cry, sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. With a surge of determination, she rushed forward, her hands moving instinctively to untie the ropes binding him. "I'm here, I'm here." She felt the urgency of time slipping away, the sound of footsteps growing louder behind her. She had to move fast. "Emily, they're coming. You need to hide," Jason warned, his eyes wide with panic. Her hands fumbled, fingers digging into the knots that held him captive. "But I won't leave you," she responded, a fierce loyalty wrapped in desperation each time she pulled on the rope. A sudden crash of wood against stone caused her to jump, lights flickering and plunging them into uncertainty. She looked towards the door, knowing they wouldn't have much time. "Please," Jason's voice cracked, "they can't find us together." The next instant, implicit danger filled the air as she finally freed him. Jason stumbled to his feet, the relief on his face stark against the terror that loomed. They locked eyes for a brief moment, a promise of survival shared between them. But just as Emily turned to lead him back, the door burst open. Shadowy figures flooded into the room, silhouetted against the flickering light. Emily's heart sank. The sense of betrayal was palpable as the realization crashed into her. Could they really trust Jason's own family to help? The menacing glint in their eyes told her everything she needed to know. "Grab him!" a voice boomed, echoing against the walls. Emily grasped Jason's hand tight, a rush of instinct set to pull him away. They turned, but there was nowhere left to run. "Trust me," Jason yelled, desperation rising in his voice as they prepared to face their pursuers. But as they turned, a knife flashed in the low light. What had they stumbled into? Could they fight their way out? Just then, Emily's mind raced with thoughts of loyalty and danger, of choices made and paths not taken. What if this was the point where trusting meant risking everything? "Emily," Jason's eyes were fierce with uncertainty but full of a deep-seated determination. "We need to act, now." But as the figures closed in, Emily realized the enormity of the choice ahead. Would she fight for Jason or seek a way to escape with him, trusting the very people she feared? Just as she opened her mouth to respond, the ground below them shifted violently. An ominous rumble shook the foundations of the old mansion. What new nightmare awaited in the shadows? The tremor beneath them escalated from a mere quiver to a violent shudder that sent dust cascading from the ceiling. The shadows swirled with each rumble, a chorus of chaos that shouted for escape. Instinct taking over, Emily tightened her grip on Jason's hand, urgency etched across her face. "Come on!" she shouted, her voice lost in the turmoil. The figures moved closer, their eyes glinting like wolves eyeing their prey. Their intentions were clear, malicious determination radiating from their every step. "Back to the door," Jason urged, pulling her towards the exit. Emily felt the weight of desperation pulling at her bones, but the doorway seemed miles away, each step a lifetime. The knife glimmered from the edge of the darkness, a sinister promise of betrayal, but then, the ground heaved again, a deeper, more bone-rattling shift that tilted the room. Suddenly, the old stone walls groaned, and dust rained down like snow. Behind them, the doorframe splintered as a shadow lunged forward, made bold by the chaos. With a swift motion, Jason snatched Emily to his side, and they stumbled back just as the doorway collapsed inward, blocking their only escape route. Panic surged within her chest, a sharp, icy grip. "What now?" "Up!" Jason shouted, gesturing toward a window across the room, covered in grime yet beckoning like a glimmer of hope. Without hesitating, they sprinted towards it, the sounds of pursuit thickening behind them, urgency sharpening their movements. They reached the window just as another figure burst through the wreckage of the door. Emily's heart raced, but Jason shoved her lightly ahead, urging her to climb. "I'll hold them off." "No. You can't," she protested, but the fierce look in his eyes silenced her. He was determined, a blend of bravery and fear that ignited something deep inside her. "Just go," he shouted, pushing her toward the ledge. Emily scrambled up, hands grasping at the rough edge, feeling the grit bite into her palms. With a last glance back, she locked eyes with Jason, whose resolve held a flicker of something she refused to name, something that promised hope even in despair. That he turned, ready to face the oncoming shadows. Emily, breathing hard, hoisted herself onto the ledge, scrambling toward the outside world. It felt surreal, her feet dropping into emptiness as she landed awkwardly on the ground, the chill of the night air easing the burning in her chest. "Jason!" she cried, panic slicing through her triumph. But the demolition behind her intensified. Shouts filled the air, volatile and familiar. She knew each voice, the echoes of the family who should have protected him. The urgency stole her breath. What twisted fate had they unleashed? Too caught in the chaos to think, she sprinted around the mansion. Emily could hear the booming shouts, the sound of flesh connecting with flesh. With every breath, fear wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing tighter. She had to find a way to reach him. Then there it was, the faint cry of desperation carried on the wind. Emily. Her stomach twisted. He was alive. But for how long? A shiver coursed down her spine as she felt the full weight of the night. She had left him, just for a moment, but she knew the grave stakes on the other side of that wall, those people, his family. What were they prepared to do? Determination surged again, fierce and relentless. Emily picked up the pace, every corner swirling with dread. She had to get back in, she couldn't leave Jason to face them alone. As she neared the front doors, a horrifying realization gripped her. She would be running straight into their hands. But what choice did she have? With every step echoing her heartbeat, Emily approached the entrance, praying that love would keep her strong in the maelstrom of trapped loyalties and dangers within. The moment hung heavy with a choice that could change everything. Could she truly save him? Just as she reached for the door, a chilling cry shattered the night. Was it Jason? Fear and adrenaline pinned her in place. Emily held her breath, teetering on the edge of resolution. What horrors awaited her behind that door, and would she find Jason still standing against them, or had something twisted this night into a grave of betrayal? Emily's heart thundered in her ears as she grasped the door handle, her mind racing. With a sharp inhale, she flung it open, the door creaking like a mournful ghost. Darkness enveloped her, the inviting dimness now laden with uncertainty. It felt like stepping into the mouth of a predatory beast. She barely had time to adjust before chaos erupted inside. Shouts mingled with the sounds of struggle, grips tightening, bodies colliding. Emily's breath caught as she squinted into the shadows, desperate to catch sight of Jason. The air was thick with dust and dread, wrapped in a palpable tension that made each heartbeat feel like a drumroll. "Jason!" she yelled, her voice slicing through the turmoil. She strained to listen, to catch even the slightest hint of his response. Through the clash of violence, from the far corner, a familiar voice yelled back, strangled with intensity, "Emily! Get out!" It hit her like a blow to the stomach. No. She hadn't come this far to abandon him now. The sight before her froze laughter in her heart. Figures collided, each about the size and shadow of a familiar monster. But as she scanned the chaos, one silhouette emerged: Jason, holding his own against a storm of fists and fury. His jaw clenched, each swing he took was fueled by desperation, but even in his resolve, she saw the weariness creep into his movement. Stomach churning, Emily knew she had to act. With a sharp exhale, she dove into the fray. She felt her adrenaline surge, a raw, primal instinct kicking in as she shoved her way forward. The melee was no more than a frenzied dance of survival, where every step felt both treacherous and vital. "Get away from him!" she shouted, throwing herself into the mass of bodies. The instant she spotted a figure lunging towards Jason, rage fired up in her core. Without hesitation, she grabbed a nearby object, a heavy candlestick, and swung it with all her strength. The impact was solid, a resounding crack that silenced the chaos momentarily. The figure crumpled to the floor, stunning shock written all over their face. But there was no time to relish the moment. "Jason, come on!" she urged, pushing towards him. He fought off another assailant, sweat glistening on his brow, eyes wide with a mix of fear and gratitude. But just as he began to turn toward her, a voice echoed through the chamber, rich with authority. "Stop! Let him go." It stopped Emily short. The figure that emerged from the shadows was unmistakable, a looming presence who cast a long shadow over everything. It was Jason's father, unmistakably furious, accompanied by a crew of his loyal thugs. Father Jason's voice faltered, his fight faltering too, as the familial dread sunk into the pit of his stomach. Emily felt the electric current of tension run through the room, a standoff that could explode at any moment. "Stand down, son," Jason's father commanded, eyes glistening with rage, addressing the chaos like an emperor overseeing a battlefield. The men hesitated, caught between loyalty and fear. She could practically hear the thoughts racing through their minds, weighting right against wrong. "Jason, no!" Emily shouted, realizing what was about to happen, the inevitable betrayal hovering just above them like a dark cloud, but Jason's expression hardened. "You don't understand," he yelled back, the fight reigniting in his tone. "I will not let you control me anymore." With a swift motion, he stepped toward Emily, but his father's wrath was here supercharged and ready to obliterate everything. "Step away from her," his father bellowed, the command spilling with the venom of betrayal. Emily's heart sank. Here it was, the heart-wrenching choice that split the night open, with love or loyalty. Escape or confrontation. In that singular moment, Emily saw only two paths ahead, but which one would lead them to safety and which one would drag them into oblivion? Jason's eyes locked onto hers, an urgent plea radiating from them. There was no time to ponder. No way to predict the consequences. Just then, the ground shook beneath the mansion again, another heavy tremor echoing through the walls and into their souls. Would the walls collapse before they figured out their next move? "Make your choice." His father's voice boomed, every syllable laced with dark threat. As the house creaked and groaned from a distance, Emily knew this choice could haunt them forever. Would they be united in this storm, or torn apart by the very darkness they wished to escape? The end was looming, and Emily felt the weight of sand slipping through the hourglass. What would they decide amidst the chaos? The air crackled with tension. Emily's heart raced as she faced the impossible choice. Jason's father loomed like a dark omen, a jagged edge against the uncertainty swirling around them. Would Jason's love for her outweigh the fierce loyalty bred into his bones? The weight of the decision pressed down like a lead cloak. "Jason, don't!" she screamed, trying to pierce the fog of anger that blurred his judgment. The urgency of the moment clawed at her throat. She knew how easily love could be transmuted into a blade, and she was terrified that this time, it would cut deep. "I won't let him control me anymore, Emily." Jason's voice rang like a clarion call, steeped in defiance. But she saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes as he faced a man who was his flesh and blood, a man who had long held dominion over him. His father stepped forward, a serpent ready to strike. "Jason, you know the consequences of this rebellion." The words dripped with mockery, tinged with the kind of authority that could topple kings. "You'll drag her down with you. Is that what you want?" The room filled with murmurs as Jason's allies hesitated. Every man in that room had to decide loyalty to a father or to a brotherhood forged in blood. Emily could feel the tension as it twisted, preparing to snap. The ground beneath them quaked, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. "Get away from her!" Jason shouted, stepping toward Emily, his fear redirected into focus. "This is my life. My choice." It was a raw, vulnerable outpouring, and for a moment, the chaos swirled around them, leaving only the two of them in a palpable bubble of connection. "Don't!" his father thundered, but this time, there was trembling in his authority. Was fear lurking behind that anger? The moment stretched, pulling taut, the world around them hazy and fading. Emily's instincts screamed for action. Without another thought, she reached for Jason's hand, the warmth of his skin igniting a spark deep within her. "We can run. We can get away from this. Together." She didn't recognize her voice, firm and persistent, but it radiated undeniable hope. Jason's gaze flickered between her and his father, the agony of choice etched into every line of his face. Just then, the ground rumbled again, a horrendous shake that made the dust particles dance like trapped spirits. The urgency was undeniable, but so was the terror etched in Jason's father's eyes. His control was slipping, and the fear was infectious. "Fools!" he yelled, a frantic glint sparking in his eyes. "If you leave now, you'll never return. There's nothing out there for you but endless darkness." The warning echoed painfully in the hollow chamber, a sinister undercurrent masking the truth in his words. Jason's expression hardened, the storm of emotions crashing against one another. "Maybe that darkness is better than this prison," he retorted, body trembling with adrenaline. And then the unimaginable happened. A terrified shout from the back of the room. One of Jason's friends broke away, lunging toward the door leading to the courtyard. Chaos erupted, everyone grappling for position as the walls of the mansion began to shake and crack, an unseen beast awoken by the fight. "Run!" Emily screamed, feeling the raw urgency burst through her. She pulled Jason toward the doorway, but his father stood firm, an unwavering wall of rage. "You want to get past me?" "Like hell I want to." Jason roared defiantly, but another tremor nearly knocked them off their feet. Emily risked a glance at the closet stairs, the one place she had seen earlier that might provide an escape route. Could they trust the stairs, knowing they were teetering on the brink of chaos? With a final, resolute look exchanged between them, the choice was made. They would fight together, side by side, and break free from the binding chains of expectation. Just as they surged toward the staircase, Jason's father unleashed a booming command, the air thick with tension and the seal of a final ultimatum. "You'll regret this, Jason. You've made your choice, but know that darkness comes for you both." Emily's pulse raced fiercely in her ears as they ascended the stairs. What lay ahead? Escape loomed, but so did the very darkness they wished to outrun. Would they find safety or fall into a deeper abyss? The clash of fate pounded in their chests as Jason gripped her hand tighter. Suddenly, a series of loud crashes reverberated from behind. As splintering wood and flailing limbs erupted in chaos downstairs, Emily's heart dropped at the imminent danger. They needed to move fast, but could they really escape the shadow of his father's wrath? What awaited them at the end of this frantic escape? Time was slipping away, and the darkness was closing in fast. Emily sprinted up the staircase, the wooden steps creaking ominously beneath their weight. Each hurried step echoed the urgent pulse in her throat, amplifying the terror that surged within her. The air was thick with dust and an unshakable sense of dread. She could hear the chaos unfolding behind them, screams mixed with the sickening sound of furniture crashing and cracking. "Jason, what if he follows us?" she gasped, glancing back over her shoulder. Just then, a loud crash resonated from below, shattering any last vestige of hope for a peaceful escape. Emily's heart pounded like a drum, drowning out everything but their frantic breaths. "He won tea!" Jason shouted, his voice tinged with desperation, yet still grounded in fierce resolve. He pulled her along, urging her forward. "We can't stop now." The narrow hallway above was dimly lit, shadows flickering ominously as the unpredictable light seemed to mock their flight. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just Jason's father they were fleeing. There was something darker, something lurking just beyond their understanding, waiting to ensnare them. They reached the end of the hallway and stood before a heavy door, its paint peeling like a husk ready to yield to age. "Is this it?" Emily hesitated, her breath hitching. What if they opened the door only to find a dead end? What lay in the unknown on the other side? Only one way to find out. Jason's teeth were clenched, but determination shone brightly in his eyes. He pushed the door open, revealing a small attic bathed in shadows, cobwebs hanging like specters in the corners. It smelled stale, filled with years of dust and forgotten memories. "Quick!" Emily urged, slipping inside and dragging Jason with her. They stumbled over old trunks and broken furniture, but it wasn't until Jason flicked a switch on an ancient lamp that they saw the space in its entirety. The walls were lined with old photographs, forgotten faces peered back at them through a thick layer of dust. "What is this place?" Emily whispered, her fingers brushing over a photo of a smiling little boy hugging a puppy, a happy memory long gone. "The old family storage. I used to hide out up here as a kid," Jason said, his voice softer now, the tension easing slightly. But that relief was short-lived when they heard a yell from below, a voice barking orders, punctuated by loud thuds echoing through the house. His father was in a frenzy, and the sound reverberated like a thunderclap in the silence of the forgotten room. "They're coming up. We need to move." Emily's voice cut sharply through the air, and once again, panic overtook her resolve. Jason grabbed her hand, guiding her toward the far corner where another door stood partially ajar. "It might lead to the roof. We can climb down from there," he said, hope lacing his voice as he pulled her closer. "Or it could be another trap." Emily felt the weight of her words hang in the air. They were teetering on the edge of danger, but every moment they hesitated allowed the darkness to creep closer. Jason hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. "No, we have to take the risk. I want to go back to being trapped by him." His grip tightened around her hand as he swung the door open fully. They spilled into another narrow stairwell, wooden stairs leading unpredictably up. Heart racing, Emily followed Jason, who led the way, determination lighting his path. The moment they stepped onto the new landing, another tremor shook the building, sending dust raining down like broken glass. Come on," he urged, urging her to quicker steps. But a fearful thought seized Emily. What if they did reach an end? What if the very darkness they hoped to escape turned out to be an inescapable cage? That chilling thought hung between them as they raced up the final steps. What lay behind whatever door awaited them? Would it be freedom, or would it be the culmination of everything Jason's father had threatened? As they reached the top, the door before them shuddered, a menacing knock punctuating the air as Jason paused, breath catching. "Emily, if we go through, there's no turning back." A loud crash echoed behind them, and without conscious thought, they flung themselves through the door together, eyes wide, hearts pounding. The world opened up before them, but was it salvation or damnation? The sunlight poured in, blinding and harsh. Instinctively, they shielded their eyes. They were outside, but the ground beneath them felt unsteady, a perilous ledge that overlooked an abyss lined with jagged rocks. And from behind came the unmistakable sound of footsteps drawing closer, a voice roaring in fury. Jason's father was almost upon them. What would they choose now? Stand their ground, or plunge into the unknown? Emily's heart thudded as dread clutched at her chest. She turned to Jason, uncertainty etched in her eyes. Would they leap into the darkness together, or be swallowed by the storm behind them? Instinctively, Jason pulled Emily closer, his fingers trembling around hers. The ledge they stood on felt precarious, the wind whipping around them as if it too was urging them to make a choice. The pleas of gravity whispered promises of annihilation, twisting Emily's stomach into knots. "Jason," she breathed, scanning the jagged rocks below, their sharp edges glistening like toothy grins ready to devour any hope left. "We can't jump. It's too far." He glanced back at the door, but it held no comfort now. The anguish in his eyes reflected the chaos brewing within him. "We have to. If we stay here, he'll catch us. You know he will." The furious roar behind them echoed louder, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Each step Jason's father took was filled with the force of 1,000 storms. Panic bubbled within Emily. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to hide, to escape anything but this unyielding edge. But what if the fear was misplaced? What if the jump only heralded a different kind of despair? A part of Emily pressed against reality, calling for them to stand their ground. What if there's no way back if we jump? She searched Jason's eyes, desperation lurking beneath her bravado. "We're already in danger. He won't stop until he finds us." His voice cracked, the raw emotion radiating like a live wire. "If we face him, it'll be." His words faltered as the next crash erupted behind them, a momentary silence filled with the threat of violence hanging in the air. "We can't just leap in faith. We need a plan," she insisted, her heart racing. But in moments like these, time plays tricks, distorting reality, and pushing the clock forward. Before either could comprehend what was happening, the door burst open, and a figure filled the frame. Jason's father, a storm of rage and dark fury. "There you are," he boomed, a wild glint in his eyes. "You think you can escape? You can't run forever." Emily's breath caught in her throat, the shadows of the memories Jason shared rushing back. The terror lurked behind him like an indulging predator. She could only imagine how many times Jason had experienced the fury of that voice, the chill of that gaze. She felt him stiffen beside her, a mix of fear and determination sparking to life. "Let's jump," Jason shouted suddenly, gripping her arm. "We might get a chance." With that exclamation, his bare feet went over the edge. Emily's heart raced as he yanked her toward him, their bodies swaying dangerously. Just as they were about to tip into chaos, the crack of something heavy hit the ground, striking the air with a tangible pop. "Get away from her." Emily barely had time to process the ultimatum when shadows crossed Jason's face. Another figure appeared at the doorway, a blur of movement and fiery defiance. It was Hannah, Jason's old friend, standing firm as if planted against the world. "Run. I'll hold him off," she yelled, eyes aflame with a fierce resolve that made Emily gasp. Jason hesitated, eyes flickering back to his father, whose face froze in disbelief. But fear ignited a flame in his heart. Emily felt it surge through him, growing into an inferno. They had only fleeting seconds. "Go!" Hannah shouted again, and the rawness of her voice broke through the noise. In that moment, Jason made a split-second decision. He tightened his grip on Emily and turned back toward the edge. "On 3. "What?" "Jason, no." Panic bubbled again, but the fire in his eyes was unyielding. 1, 2. The roar of that monstrous figure erupted again, threatening to swallow them whole, reverberating through the air like a veiled threat. 3. They leaped together, heart and soul intertwining, tumbling through the air as the world warped into a dizzying blur. As they fell, Emily wondered if jumping was their only chance at freedom or the steepest plunge into despair. Would they land in safety or shatter on the rocks below? And somewhere in the void, a chilling laugh echoed, as if darkness itself was approving their reckless leap. But when they hit the ground, would that laughter turn into screams? The ground loomed closer. The impact shook through Emily's entire being as they landed hard. Her breath seized momentarily, and stars exploded in her vision while the world spun wildly around her. But Jason didn't wait for her to recover. He was already scrambling to his feet, pulling her up. They were on a slope, the ground littered with debris, but the coarse gravel offered some grip. Panic rushed through them, urgency growing with every second they remained exposed. "Where do we go?" Emily gasped between rapid breaths, the thud of her heart threatening to drown everything else out. She was too disoriented, too terrified. All she could think about was the edge where they just jumped from and the rage brewing above. "Over there." Jason pointed, his voice tense. "The trees." But were trees really a sanctuary? The thundering footsteps behind them reminded her that danger wasn't far away, it was gaining ground. They shot down the slope, limbs flailing as they tried to maintain stability. The icy grip of fear seized Emily. Did Hannah make it out? She shouted, imaging the worst. "We can't think about that now." Jason snapped, pushing on despite the uncertainty flashing in his eyes. "We have to keep moving." They dove into the cover of the trees, pine needles cushioning their descent. The forest felt foreign, shadows dancing around them, flickering suspiciously under the moonlight. Fear twisted her stomach as they pressed deeper into the woods, breaths heavy and mutual. Emily glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see Jason's father barrel through the trees like a beast on the hunt. But the darkness swallowed the path behind them, offering no comfort and no clear escape. "Are you okay?" Jason asked, his voice softer now. He paused to catch his breath, worry lacing his tone as he brushed the grime from her cheeks. "Yeah. I'm fine," she lied, forcing a nod. Was she fine? Maybe. Or maybe she was just functioning. She didn't have the luxury to find out. The echoes of their reckless leap still reverberated in her mind. They had wandered from one hell into a murky abyss. A crashing noise rippled through the trees, an outer branch cracking under an unseen weight. "That's him," Jason hissed, pulling her deeper into the darkness. "We need to hide." They ducked behind a thick trunk, hearts beating louder than the sounds of the forest. Pain tinged with adrenaline coursed through her. It felt unfair. She should be been home, cozy in bed, not running from danger in the dead of night. The sounds grew nearer, punctuated by Jason's father's growls echoing off the trees. "Where are you, Jason? You think you can run?" Jason's eyes flared with anger, the defiance igniting once more. "I want to let him take me," he murmured, wrapping an arm around her protectively. Emily felt the warmth of his body seep into her, a fragile beacon of safety in the looming dark. The forest twisted night and turned secrets. Maybe it was her imagination, or the exhaustion twisting her perception, but the world felt alive, whispering, beckoning, and guiding. They crept forward, and reluctant hope flickered. But as they rounded a ridge, a chilling presence entered the air, heavy and oppressive. A shadow rippled where it shouldn't have. Emily's heart stumbled, somersaulting from her chest as she squinted into the blackness. "Jason?" she whispered. Suddenly, there it was. A single chilling laugh echoed, laced with menace, slicing through the leaves. It was her worst nightmare realized, a hollow sound that wrapped around her like a noose, tightening. "Did you think you could escape?" The voice slithered through the air, slinking into their hiding place. Jason froze, every muscle tense. "It's a trap," he breathed. Emily peered through the trees, dread pooling in her stomach as the figure of Jason's father emerged, illuminated by the moonlight, eyes wild with fury and something else, pure malice. "What do we do?" she whispered, panic clawing at her throat. Jason's grip tightened, steely resolve taking over. "We face him. Together." But as they stood on the precipice of confrontation, doubt flickered. Did they really have a chance? Would they merely be pawns in a brutal game? And as the chill of impending dread surged, the ground tremored again, this time a warning cry that felt like a pulse of something bigger than themselves. Were they ready to confront the monstrous figure closing in? As the darkness loomed, a scream echoed behind them, a sound that cut through the very fabric of the night. It wasn't just a call for help, it was something far worse. And in that moment, Emily's heart sank. This was only the beginning. Emily's pulse pounded in her ears, drowning out the haunting scream that seemed to hang in the air like a fog. Fear stole her breath, making it hard to think straight. Had that scream come from Hannah? Or someone else trapped in the same nightmare? Jason's jaw clenched, determination etched into his features. "We can't waste any more time," he insisted. "We have to go back." "Are you crazy?" Emily hissed, panic creeping into her voice. "We'll be walking straight back into his hands." "Maybe, but I can't just leave her." It didn't matter how much Jason's resolve resonated with her. She wanted to scream, to shake him until he realized they were not in a fairy tale where heroes always saved the day. A howl echoed through the trees again, more thunderous than before, and with it came the realization, they weren't alone. "Please, Jason, we need to hide," Emily begged, dragging him back just as another chilling laugh filtered through the branches above. This time it was mixed with a growl, a sound that reverberated with ancient threats. The figures were closing in, the dark shadows stretching and distorting as murmurs slithered through the trees. The laughter echoed in her mind, taunting her as they pressed deeper into the thicket. Jason turned, flicking his gaze over the trees, clearly torn between finding Hannah and saving them both. "This way," he said suddenly, urgency igniting his voice. Emily followed, adrenaline coursing through her. Each step sent roots and rocks jabbing into her feet, but she barely noticed the pain. It was suffocated by the rising tide of dread and desperation. They zigzagged through the thickest foliage, dodging branches that swatted at their faces. Distant sounds chased them, a haunting chorus of jeers and wicked laughter that sent cold shivers racing down Emily's spine. Suddenly, Jason halted, eyes wide with fear. "Emily, look!" Before them, a deep ravine gaped, its edges craggy and dark like a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. The forest here felt ancient. Something was buried in its depths. She stared into the murky blackness, catching the glint of something metallic far below. "Is that?" She squinted, instinctively stepping closer. "No." Jason yanked her back just as the ground trembled beneath their feet. "We can't go down there." The tremor grew, vibrating through the air, filling it with a palpable danger. The laughter intensified, swirling around them like a flock of vultures. In that moment, Emily felt it, a dark, pressing weight, as if the night itself was alive and hungry. The ravine yawned wider, fragments of rock crumbling down into the abyss. Something about the sound that followed, a shattering echo, sent a jolt of fear coursing through her. They needed to move, and fast. "Jason, we can't let them trap us here," she urged, pulling him away from the edge. But Jason had already spotted something nearby, a shadow darting behind a cluster of trees. "Did you see that?" His eyes lit with a fierce glow. "It might be Hannah." "Are you out of your mind? What if it's a trick?" "Trust me," he insisted, his voice firm. Against her better judgment, she followed him. The world around her dwindled down to the sounds of their footsteps echoing on the forest floor, breaths ragged and desperate. The laughter was no longer just a distant memory, it was ear-splitting now, a sinister promise in the dark. Suddenly, they rounded the stand of trees and came face to face with a figure clad in shadows. The familiar outline sent an electric charge through the night. Emily's heart dropped. "Hannah." The girl's silhouette swayed, fear written all over her face. She opened her mouth to scream just as a pair of glowing eyes broke through the dark behind her, fixing on Emily and Jason. "Run!" Jason shouted, grabbing Emily's arm and diving back into the trees. But whatever had emerged was faster, swiping the air with a strength that reverberated through the earth. Behind them, Hannah's scream pierced the night, and Emily's heart shattered. They raced into the abyss of trees, not looking back, fueled by a sudden, raw urgency, a primal instinct to survive. But with every pounding step, dread twisted deep in her gut, gnawing at her resolve. Had they already crossed a line too far to return? And as the laughter echoed again, relentlessly pursuing them, Emily's mind raced. She knew this wasn't just a game anymore. This was a fight for their lives. What awaited them in the tangled forest? What lay in store in the depths of the night that was closing in? The forest loomed like an ancient sentinel, thick with secrets and shadows. Emily and Jason ran, the sound of their breath mingling with the relentless laughter that echoed around them. This night had set itself firmly against them. Trees whipped past like dark sentinels, their twisted branches clawing at them as they fled deeper into the unknown. "Where do we go?" she shouted, panic pinching her voice. The ground beneath felt treacherous, almost alive, shaking with fury. They had barely escaped the walls of the mansion, and now the forest seemed eager to swallow them whole. Jason's face was set in fierce determination. "We need to keep moving." His grip was tight around her wrist, urging her forward. But he was asking the impossible: could they really outrun the terror gripping their heels, or was it merely biding its time? Suddenly, they burst into a small clearing. Moonlight cascaded through the treetops, illuminating a weathered stone well at the center. Its mouth gaped open like an abyss, dark and yawning. Emily drew closer, an instinct pulling her toward it despite the foreboding feeling that clawed at her gut. "Jason, we can't stop here." She cried, but her voice softened as the well seemed to whisper promises of refuge. This might lead somewhere. He insisted, peering down into the darkness. We don't have other options, Emily, listen. We fight together or we keep looking for a way out and we might not find one. The weight of his words sank and the forest echoed with more than just laughter, it was filled with a dark anticipation of a confrontation looming ahead. The evil they had escaped might come from more than just Jason's father. They had uncovered something festering beneath decades of family secrets. We have to go. But something about the well tugged at her. What if it was a way to escape? The laughter faded, but shadows of memories flickered through her mind. What if there's another way? What if it leads us away from this nightmare? I don't know. We can't gamble, Jason pressed, his eyes flicking from her to the dark well before them. He clenched his jaw, weighing fear against whatever hope remained. Let us at least take a look. She urged, ignoring the quivering in her knees. The anxiety bunched inside her chest, but that spark of hope ignited a reckless courage. When he hesitated, she whispered, together, remember? Jason's gaze softened, uncertainty mixing with determination. Together, he echoed, exhaling heavily. With a nod, they leaned over the lip of the well, the depth of darkness yawning wide beneath them. You first. He joked, attempting to lighten the haunting mood. Very funny. How about we go down at the same time? They exchanged nervous chuckles as they lowered themselves in. As they descended, the world above faded, replaced by a nearby silence, the darkness cocooning them like a veil. And then they landed with a soft thud on what felt like hardened earth. Emily coughed, the musty scent wrapping around her like an old blanket. Are we under the mansion? Jason's voice echoed faintly, and she could barely see him through the thick blackness. Seems like it, she replied, forcing her voice steady as she took careful steps forward, feeling the ground beneath her. Their focus shifted toward a distant light flickering ominously at the end of the tunnel they had entered. In that moment, a distant roar sent tremors vibrating the air around them. What was that? Jason's anxiety overtook every corner of his expression, eyes wide, brimming with fear. Keep going. She urged, their footsteps echoing in the tight space as they moved toward the flickering light that seemed both welcoming and terrifying. As they reached the light, Emily was met with an open chamber, its walls decorated in strange symbols of forgotten history etched into stone, whispering of curses and lost souls. And within the dim glow, they beheld a sight that pulled their breath away. A figure was hunched in the corner. Hannah. She appeared battered but alive, her eyes wide with relief when she spotted them. Thank God. I thought I'd lost you. She exclaimed, her voice a trembling thread of hope. Can you walk? Jason asked, fear luring in the back of their minds. But even as he spoke, something dark crept from beneath the shadows behind them. No. Emily shouted, pushing Jason and Hannah toward the other side of the chamber. The laughter echoed again, sharper, crueler, a reminder that escape was never just a simple leap. Suddenly, a figure emerged. The silhouette was warped yet familiar. It was Jason's father, standing defiantly in the shadows, rage simmering in his eyes. You should never have come here. He bellowed, a monstrous serenity wrapping around him like a spell. Jason stepped in front of Emily and Hannah, shoulders squared. You won't hurt anyone else, he said, voice trembling but resolute. The laughter grew louder, voracious. You think you can defy me? This is my domain. Your rebellion ends here. Just as despair flickered in Emily's heart, she caught Jason's eye. The fear she'd seen moments before had hardened into a resolve she admired. Together, they whispered in unison, and in that instant, they became a trio. Emily could feel the tether of their bond strengthening, lifting them above the depths of despair. With one shared breath, they surged as one against the darkness. The shadows recoiled, straining against the tides of their unity, forcing Jason's father to stagger back slightly. Now. To the exit. Emily screamed, grabbing Jason's arm as they maneuvered toward the far corner of the chamber where an unfinished passage awaited, just begun by time but promising escape. The air thickened with malevolence around them, a desperate urgency clawed at their heels as Jason shouted, "Leave him!" But even as they crossed the threshold into light, the shadows reached out, desperate and clawing. In that moment of surrender and fight, the distance from Jason's father flickered. The battle had begun. Together, they emerged from the darkness, breaking free from the madness of the night. This night had not stolen their hearts but forged an unbreakable bond, a promise against all odds. With adrenaline rushing and heartbeats thundering, they burst into fresh air, the chill of the night carrying a wave of relief as they emerged from the shadows. They had left behind the greed, anger, and shadows hanging in the hollow darkness. "Are we free?" Hannah gasped, her voice trembling. Emily nodded, overwhelmed by the night's weight, as Jason pulled them into a comforting embrace. Maybe true freedom lay not in the absence of danger but within the fierce love they had uncovered, cloaked in the courage to fight against darkness together, and in the stillness of that night, they knew it would take every ounce of their resolve to rise again, but they had found a way to break the cycle of fear, betrayal, and darkness. They were not just survivors, they were a family forged in fire and bound by love. Now, if you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion and want to catch more exclusive stories, you need to subscribe now. Don't let the suspense linger. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and help us grow this incredible community. Flood the comments section. I want to hear your thoughts, your theories. Did you expect that twist? Which character spoke to you the most? And for your friends who need to see this explosive ending, instantly share this video with at least 5 people. If you love the excitement and the heart behind our stories, this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second. Your commitment makes all the difference. Let us keep this adventure going.